It's time to begin on the secret page levels, which are hidden away by clicking on the limbo page, then clicking on page 1. Doing so allows us to access 8 more extremely challenging levels with all new, unique twists and gimmicks. So, without further ado, let's start on the first level, Extremely Speedy Zombies. But these zombies are definitely not known for being fast. The gimmick this level appears after the first flag. All zombies move 10 times faster, but revert to normal speed if they encounter a plant or are slowed down. If that sounds familiar, that's because it is the same gimmick from Adventure Level 7-9 and what the T-Rex in PvZ2 gives to zombies. The first and most obvious way to mitigate the speedy zombies is to use an Ice Shroom, which renders the increased speed irrelevant. As for Pogo Zombies, the tried and tested staggered Gloomshroom formation is a reliable way to kill them. It ensures Pogos in the even lanes die to the Fume Shrooms, while those in the odd lanes die to the Gloomshroom Splash. But since the zombies rush to our Gloomshrooms so quickly, we kill them extremely fast, triggering the 50% rule almost immediately, only giving us about 7 seconds in between waves. That is not enough time to plant an Ice Shroom every wave, even with Imitator, and once we have no more Ice Shrooms and our pumpkins are dead, then our defense is certainly cooked. Well, you can get away by using Doom Shroom instead of Ice Shroom, but that has the same effect since it just kills the wave, so the next wave gets sent in immediately again. Even still, that's not enough time for our next Ice Shroom to be off cooldown before our entire defense collapses. The fact that wave spawns so quickly makes this one of the only levels where Wintermelon is better than Ice Shroom, since the short but repeated freezes give us better uptime if we can't use the Ice Shroom every wave, but it doesn't necessarily slow down the Pogo Zombies if it doesn't splash the right area, which makes our staggered Gloomshroom formation not so reliable anymore. In case you were wondering why not just imitate Blover for full coverage, Blover doesn't slow down zombies with shields. The only thing we can do to mitigate this is to push our defense a bit further back to get a better chance at slowing down the Pogo Zombies. But no promises that could do anything, since we can't control where our Wintermelon splash and they can completely whiff. But that didn't even matter since I screwed up by having a Gravebuster on the lawn, which blocked the Flag Zombie and prevented our Gloomshroom from killing it. And we're all too familiar with not killing Flag Zombie at this point with the ridiculous bungee ambushes and graves that start spawning and destroy our entire defense. So I switched out Marigold for Imitator Pumpkin in my next run, providing more protection for our Gloomshrooms. Since its on-death ability has a 1 in 4 chance of freezing all zombies, this is also an extra way to slow down the Pogo Zombies when Blover recharges. But even with double the pumpkins, it's still not enough defense to fully protect our Gloomshrooms. Even though the zombies individually do very little damage, the constant pressure makes our defense hard to preserve. I gave this loadout a few more tries, but it was clear, this wasn't the solution. Extra pumpkins did not allow us to keep our defense alive against normal zombies, and their unreliable freeze made them somewhat weak against Pogo Zombies as well. So what's the right call here? Well, after a bunch of trial and error, I found that having both Wintermelon and Ice Shroom works the best. This combo deals with both of our previous problems at once, since Wintermelons protect our pumpkins from being eaten, and if Blover is recharging when a new wave is coming, we can slow down the new Pogo Zombies by using an Ice Shroom instead. In fact, using an Ice Shroom to cover for us during Blover's downtime has made such a big difference, it's enough for us to get to the second flag without losing even a single Gloomshroom. Having both Ice Shroom and Wintermelon was such a game changer, we almost breezed all the way to the third flag without losing any Gloomshrooms. But then, the instant happened. No! Oh my god, that did not activate. Come on, no. Okay, we're still fine. Hey, we're good, actually. The Imitator Ice Shroom actually does save us here. We got bailed out by the pumpkin to save the game, and now we're on the home stretch. And it certainly ain't a pretty sight with how many zombies now spawn in just one wave. Even with Gloomshroom's high damage and its infinite pierce, they can't keep up with the constant chip damage the zombies inflict. But even though we lost part of our defense, the extra pumpkins we planted in the early game saved us as they provide just that little bit of extra protection for us to cling onto dear life before we could get completely overwhelmed. Any more waves than this, we would have stood no chance. But Ice Shroom made enough of a difference alongside Wintermelons protecting our pumpkins. Talk about razor-thin margins here, as every pumpkin that we planted ended up mattering, and that is how we beat the first secret page level, Extremely Speedy Zombies. The second level is Unpopular Plants Gathering, which is a locked and loaded level with the theme being that all the plants you get are trashed here. First of all, we have Magneshroom on a level with no metallic zombies. We also have Sunshroom instead of Sunflower, meaning our sun production is quite literally twice as slow. If you want the mats, since they recharge at the same speed, and also instantly break even after producing one sun, Sunshroom is straight up a strict downgrade from Sunflower. As an extra handicap on our already bad sun production, we also only have Cactus and Split Pea as our attacking plants, both being overpriced pea shooters in the early game. And last but not least, we have Planter, whose usefulness is questionable, as well as Garlics on a level of Pole Vaulters. Sounds about right. Since our attacking plants are basically just expensive pea shooters, it's simply impossible to defend Pole Vaulters, making our already bad sun production even worse. But if you thought things couldn't get worse, this loadout has no explosives, and we'll somehow have to defend flag zombies and stop the bungee ambushes using just Cactus and Split Pea. And we don't even have any stalls or wall plants here. Surely the modder made sure this level is at least beatable, right? Your guess is about as good as mine as to how to beat this level. I started off with the very scuffed Garlic Split Pea combo, which ought to concentrate damage on the Pole Vaulters, but this works as well as you may have expected. It literally folded against just 2 Pole Vaulters, but you also just straight lose to Ender Coneheads with this setup because we only start damaging them on the 4th column. Split Peas may have failed us, but Garlics are not entirely useless, since we can also pair them with Planter and utilize the Shockwave attack. A Gloomwalk from Temu would be the best comparison to what this strategy is. But this still doesn't solve the inherent problem that placing Garlics up front means we can't really stop Pole Vaulters. And before you ask me to use Potato Mine on them, that doesn't work because they trample our plants before the mine activates. But I haven't even told you about the worst part of this level. Let's just say the enraged balloon zombies make Garlic completely useless. All that effort to build up our defense worth several thousand sun and just 2 zombies on their own ruin it all. Then, I tried Gloom Wall from Temu, which doesn't work either. The slow attack speed of Planter makes it extremely unreliable for countering Pole Vaulters. And it's even worse than Temu Gloomwalk since we have no buffer zone to kill the Vaulters after they jump. Over the next half dozen or so attempts, I tried a bunch of different setups by putting Cactus or Split Pea in different columns, but none of these even made it past the Flag Zombie's bungee ambushes. We simply have no quick way to kill the Flag Zombie or deal with the bungee ambushes it spawns. It may seem like we're doomed, but some hope remains. It discovered that having 5 attacking plants in a lane is enough to kill the Flag Zombie after only 1 bungee ambush, but this comes at the cost of being limited to only 1 safe column for some producers. As you may expect, 1 column of Sunshrooms is not enough to fund the overpriced pea shooters we're forced to use, and pretty quickly, we just lose to Pole Vaulters again. But there is still one last way to deal with the Flag Zombie. We can plant a Planter in the very front in the lane next to the Flag Zombie and utilize its on-death explosion. But yeah, it needs to die, which might not be fast enough because of its own Shockwave attack. The Flag Zombie still ended up spawning a bungee ambush, so yeah, we end up screwed regardless of what we try to do to minimize our losses. Is this level even possible? I kid you not. I spent over 4 different live streams and more than 30 different attempts trying to beat this level. I built every setup imaginable using the given plants, but none of our attempts even came close to getting us to the final wave if we were lucky enough to not die to the Flag Zombie bungee ambushes. I honestly thought this level was impossible, until it wasn't. Getting past the Flag Zombie requires immense luck, as we need both fast-moving zombies and Zalbotany P basic zombies to damage the Planter quickly enough so the Flag Zombie dies before it spawns a bungee ambush. Most crucial to our survival is high-rolling the Shockwave attack timing to kill the enraged balloon zombies. In case you didn't see that, it was, in fact, the Planter's own Shockwave attack that killed the enraged balloon zombie, and not Cactus. That timing is so precise it's impossible to plan for, but that stupid RNG is the only way to win since Cactus reacts too slowly otherwise. Just having the Planter alive to do some splash before all our cacti upgrade to the burst version is mandatory if we want to defend the later waves of the higher density of zombies. And just like that, we went from not even being close to the final wave to beating the level all at once. Sometimes these levels aren't even close to possible, but just take one problem out of the equation that can be fixed with some good RNG, and suddenly, it's all trivial from there. Welcome to the Mushroom Garden, but with a line drawn down the middle of the lawn. And you're seeing this right, those are Giga Gargantuars. On top of that, Cherry Bomb and Cob Cannon are banned. I'll be honest, this already looks pretty bad. The game didn't explain what this line meant, so I made my educated guess that this was a Don't Let the Zombies Trample the Flowers challenge from PBT2 and went ahead with a Cob Cannon Wintermelon Hyper Strat. And yes, Cob Cannon is supposed to be banned, but Imitator bypasses the restriction. But soon, you'll see what this line does. And that right there is where the level name Fold comes from. Plants change positions periodically by folding across the lawn, each moving to its mirrored spawn on the opposite side. A fold happens once every minute, affecting all plants except those placed directly on the middle column where the line is. And yes, this gimmick makes all ranged plants practically useless since anything we have in the back will just teleport to the front a minute later. This means the only attacking plant that is even mildly viable is Gloomshroom. I know it's the only viable option again, but it's the only plant that doesn't get messed up when the lawn is folded since the defense only occupies one column. Now, I didn't say using Gloomshroom was a thought-out plan against Giga Gargantuars. There's no way to slow them down with this loadout since I forgot they were immune to Blover, and our Crittlepults might as well be useless since we can only plant a few in between folds. And yeah, one smash and we're cooked against Giga Gargantuars. What did you expect from a one-column defense? But hey, we can also try and exploit the folding to our advantage using Tall Nut this level. Usually, Tall Nut is completely useless since it constantly moves towards the right, so it doesn't even block zombies off for long and eventually just drifts off the lawn. But now, because of the fold, their position is reset once every minute, which gives them another chance to protect our plants again, making it the only wall plant that benefits from the fold. And thanks to the fold gimmick, this is the first time I managed to utilize Tall Nut's special ability, where it does a blowover attack when it's about to die. Yes, the first time after like 150 hours of the TD mod. Damn shame that doesn't even matter much since Tall Nuts don't slow down Giga Gargantuars, meaning we still have to run double Ice Shroom. And learning from our last run, I immediately planted an extra Gloomshroom to DPS down that Giga Gargantuar at the bottom. But Giga Gargantuars don't only spawn in one lane, and very quickly, we find ourselves in a position where we can only either counter the Imps or the Giga Gargantuar itself, because there aren't enough Gloomshrooms for us to defend everything at once, and we end up losing a bunch of lawnmowers. Plus, this loadout doesn't even stand a chance against Zombonis since our only answer is instant kill spam. But 2 consecutive waves of Zombonis and more Giga Gargantuars will certainly finish us off. So even the best attacking plant didn't do much, meaning we will once again have to use the dumb strategy. But what specific plans should I use? Well, that's just going to be trial and error. I first tested it with Hypnoshroom and Gold Magnet since it counters football zombies. But this has massive flaws against green Zombonis. They randomly switch lanes, so we can't counter them predictively with gold magnets if they can just go somewhere else. Not only does that waste their gold magnet, but now we have to spend even more instant kills to kill it. Then, even worse, whenever more Zombonis come in the wave after, we're left with nothing to defend against them. This forces us to sacrifice a lawnmower, which we'll have to do many times throughout this level since our instant kills are too limited to defend everything the game throws at us. And since Giga Gargantuars also takes so many instant kills to kill, our only hope to DPS down Giga Gargantuars is with Gold Magnet and then holding them in place using Chump Blockers and or Ice Shrooms. But I've just forgot about the one little caveat of using Gold Magnet. Don't ever try and counter an Ender Conet with a Hypnotized Zombie, since that'll just make it teleport to the back instantly. And on top of that, I also forgot that Imitator only has 1 HP, and planted it right into a Zombotany P. Yup, that's just me throwing. Despite the mistakes though, we still performed better using the dumb strategy, so we're on the right track here. I then tried Imitator Gold Magnet, but somehow this is even worse because the green Zomboni seems to have a mind of its own, Matrix dodging its way through all 5 hypnotized zombies and also killing all our sun production, leaving us with no defense against regular Zombonis, so this is certainly not it. So as our last resort, we're gonna imitate Doomshroom. Having 2 Doomshrooms usually anti-stalls the waves too much and makes our other instant kills worse, but this is the rare scenario where more damage rather than stalling is better, since that extra knockout punch against Giga Gargantuars lets our other instant clean up the remainings more reliably, coming with the cost of lawnmowers getting less value overall. But the tricky part is figuring out what we use as our 10th plant. Tall Nut is like good value, but there's no real opportunity where it's useful. It's pretty awkward since it just instantly dies to Giga Gargantuars and Zombonis, so it ends up doing very little, maybe at most it kills an imp or 2. And in fact, Tall Nut isn't even good at blocking off random stray zombies. Here, our only option was to chump block the All-Star with a Tall Nut, but then a perfectly timed fold happens which unblocks the lane, so much for me thinking the fold makes the Tall Nut better when it's still completely unusable. Ironically, I found that Pumpkin was the best choice, simply thanks to the small chance it freezes the lawn when it dies. It seems stupid to use it just for that, but it actually saved our lawnmower against these imps here. And it's not even that bad against Giga Gargantuars, since we can just plant pumpkins on the top lane where they can't spawn. But obviously, the freeze effect is random, so we may or may not get a freeze at all, which is a problem when you've got a giant football zombie charging down an empty lane and every plant is on cooldown. We didn't get the freezes in time, and so we lost. Please, RNGesus, have mercy on me. I then kept trying this level with the same loadout, just hoping to get lucky enough with pumpkin freezes, but I could not push my luck any further than I already had. Defending Giga Gargantuars without attacking plants or cob cannons just seemed nearly impossible, but there is a way. Lawnmowers. By looking at which lane had the most Giga Gargantuars, I preemptively decided to sacrifice lane 2 because it would cost us the most to defend there. This frees up resources for us to focus on the remaining Giga Gargantuars, and with the help of literally every single plant in our loadout, we can hold off the massive horde of zombies without losing our other lawnmowers. However, the biggest optimization of all was actually spending a Doomshroom to kill the regular brown coat zombies. It looks stupid, but this keeps our hypnotized zombies alive, so that they can move further forward and deal with a second batch of Giga Gargantuars. Doing so gives us slightly more value out of our gold magnets, which is crucial to our survival as it allows us to stall enough to reach the very important point, 2 waves before the final wave, which is when we want to sacrifice our remaining lawnmowers. As odd as it sounds, using our remaining lawnmowers is a necessity at this point. But why would I not want the lawnmowers for the final wave? Well, we actually have to save our instants for the final wave, because we need to deal with the flag zombie using a jalapeno. Plus, we need both Doomshrooms off cooldown so we don't die to green Zamboni switching into a lane without a lawnmower. We did get lucky and none of those spawned, but my point still holds. And after we deal with the Zambonis, you can see that all the Giga Gargantuars we have to deal with are now clumped into one lane, thanks to our lawnmower sacrifices, which makes it a heck of a lot easier to deal with. Just several explosives later, and that's all the zombies that could kill us all destroyed. That is how I managed to overcome Giga Gargantuars with only instant kills and beat Fold. The next level is pretty straightforward. In Protect Plants, don't let any of the endangered plants die. If any of the free pre-placed plants are lost, we lose immediately. Well, how hard could it be to just protect free plants?
Oh no!
This is as bad as it seems on paper as in practice. There's only half a second to react to a blue squash zombie before it can crush the endangered garlic. A sacrifice on a 9 column doesn't even help, since any pole vaulters will instantly jump into the back if we place a plant there, so we're forced to use explosives to deal with squash zombies. But just for an idea of how fast you have to be, if you didn't pre-select your instant kill when the wave spawns, the time it takes to move your cursor is enough to make you lose. And we don't have hotkeys to select plants in the TD mod, making it much harder than, say, if this was in brutal mode. With that little time to react to squash zombies, I don't think any human will beat this without some extra breathing room. That's why I have to mass pre-plant ice shrooms in the early game to freeze every wave as soon as it spawns, so that we can at least have some time to target our cop shots. But even so, you can't just use the coffee bean when you see the next wave coming, because that's actually too slow, and the ice shroom won't freeze before the garlic gets trampled. It's not just about having fast hands or good eyes, but I'll have to keep track of when the next wave will spawn and time my ice shroom activations accordingly. The precise timings sound pretty bad, but you can still have Kernel Pole to sometimes stun blue squash zombies if we mess up our ice shroom timing. It's unreliable, but some insurance is better than none. Just keep in mind, we only have Kernel Poles in 2 lanes, so if I don't plant the coffee bean as soon as the 50% rule is met, our other lanes will still suffer the consequences, albeit not game-losing ones for now. And I said for now, because even though our endangered plants are alive, those blue squash zombies killed an ice shroom. It doesn't seem significant, but since we're anti-stalling the waves to kill jalapeno zombies before they explode, we're using ice shrooms faster than we can replenish them, which is only possible since we're using up our pre-planted ice shrooms from the early game. Once I've used up all the pre-planted ice shrooms, we become a sitting duck against squash zombies, and it's game over. This is the perfect example of how accumulating tiny mistakes over time can lead to catastrophe. And with a level like this where we have to practice and master the timings, I sucked a lot in like the first 10 attempts of this level, always dying to a squash zombie because either freezing too early or too late, but I was willing to put in the dedication to improve. And practice I did. After about an hour of constant retries, I got the hang of it. Perfect ice shroom activations at the start of each wave, and also perfect cop cannon timings to maximize the time between waves. Boy oh boy was this level tough at first, but after a lot of practice, this level simply becomes rinse and repeat with the same ice shroom and cop cannon timings for every wave. I'll make it look easy now, but there were several hours of effort in getting the timings down as precisely as possible, and that's how we protected the endangered plants from the jalapeno and squash zombies in the TD mod. But aside from protecting plants, the next level is Protect the Cursor. The gimmick is so absurd, I hadn't even started recording by the time we lost. Just watch what happened. Oh my god. What the heck was that? What the heck was that? What?
No!
I haven't even started recording yet and we lost already? Welcome to this absolutely atrocious level, where we have to avoid touching the danger tiles with our mouse cursor. It might sound harmless at first if you just pay attention to where your cursor is, but it severely slows us down because we have to move around the craters when planting something new. And the tolerance on whether you're touching the tile or not is extremely small. If you literally touch a single pixel, you instantly lose. You're trying to plant a new Gloomshroom, touch one pixel of the crater and bam, you're dead. So, unless you want to spend 5 seconds carefully weaving the cursor between the craters every time you want to plant something new, we're gonna break the confines of the game itself by just moving the cursor outside of the game window and coming back in after making a giant loop on the outside to plant whatever we're trying to plant. These strats are like the impossible quiz type shit right here. It makes something as simple as placing a Gloomshroom a laborious task, since it takes 5 loop rounds to plant. Preparing the flower pot, then the fume shroom, then grab the coffee bean to wake it up, then getting a pumpkin to protect it, and then finally upgrading it to a Gloomshroom at the end. Yeah, just planting that one Gloomshroom took us 15 seconds. And doing that isn't even optional, since it's so easy to lose when you're just trying to weave your cursor around the danger tiles. But the danger tiles aren't the only new thing in this level, as we are limited to only one umbrella leaf for this level as well. And in case you were wondering, you can't bypass the restriction by using imitator umbrella leaf. On top of that, Bungie zombies in this level steal instantaneously with no delay, making our only umbrella leaf that much more important. But there is one last change to this level that makes it pretty stupid. Just watch my reaction to this. What? Bungie zombies stole away your mouse? What, so you can't even touch... You can't touch Bungie zombies either? Is that... really? You can't touch Bungie zombies either. I'm not even gonna try and pretend I understand why that message pops up, because I still don't understand when the game considers a Bungie zombie stealing your mouse cursor. I didn't even have my mouse cursor in the game window, and the game says it was stolen, so clearly it's not detecting where your mouse cursor is in-game. It also has nothing to do with the last tile you touched before the cursor left the game window. Here, I planted a flower pot on the 8th column and pulled my cursor out towards the right, so the last tile I'll touch is most certainly on the 9th column. But then the mouse cursor still gets stolen, so it certainly does not track where your cursor last was within the game. And it also has nothing to do with where the last plant you placed was. I put this pumpkin right on top of this Gloomshroom and moved my mouse cursor off the game window. Then you see the Bungie zombies coming in, and none of them target the tile where we just planted a pumpkin, but the game still said that our cursor was stolen again. Like, what even is the gimmick here? And it's not just the mouse cursor stealing gimmick that's stopping us from making any progress on this level. The danger tiles and how even touching a single pixel of it will result in you instantaneously losing is like the most annoying thing to exist ever. I'm not even exaggerating, but this might just be the most frustrating level I've ever attempted. And the crash outs I had, man, they were something. What? This counts? Are you kidding? This counts? What the heck? Oh my god, come on! No! Bullshit. Oh my god, I tried to play Doomshroom and then we lose to the Conehead. Are you Are you this Come on, man. I have to wait 10 minutes again. Okay, whatever. Anyways. Okay, now I have to really play this again. Come on. Are you Dude, this level has like no... Come on. Oh my god. Bullshit, dude. I was trying to play some... Hell! Okay. Oh, top lane's dead again. Are you f***ing me? And this died as well. Okay. Are you kidding me, man? I just want to plant Gloomshroom and I touched it. Oh! I can't, dude. I can't. Oh my god, no! Please plant faster. Okay, no. Are you kidding me? Come on! Oh, this level, man. This level sucks. I mean, I got pretty fed up after all that losing for 3 hours straight. And you know what? I just said, f it, let's just save scum so we don't have to deal with this bullshit. And I admit it, it's petty. I don't have the patience to weave my mouse cursor around the danger tiles perfectly for 3 flags straight, but I ain't playing a level that only has screen doors and bungees for more than 3 hours just because I can't move my cursor carefully enough. So that's why I'm doing it. And I'm sure stretching it out is pretty pointless as well because, like, I'm not really providing any new strategies for you guys to see anyway. So yeah, that's Protect the Cursor completed, but not really just yet. Can we still lose? Wait, guys. I'm just curious. Can we still lose right here? Wait, no! No! Are you kidding me? It's impossible to win! We can't click on the cash bag because it's on top of the craters. All this time, we've been trying our best. Oh, okay. I'm just gonna count it because, yeah, I'm not playing. Yeah. Well, moving right along from that, Power of Wind is the next level, the only minigame in the Blood Moon world. For some reason, Chomper and Imitator are banned this level. As soon as the level begins, a message describing the current wind strength and direction appears. Since this is in Chinese, I'll put up an English translation for you guys. When there's an east wind, all projectiles accelerate towards the left, like the wind from the east blowing things westward. This makes Zombotaney Ps faster, hence becoming more threatening. And as I said, the wind affects all projectiles. This means Gloomshroom's single target spores now fly to the left instead of shooting in all 4 directions. Thankfully, the wind doesn't affect its main splash attack, so it's not that big of a nerf. But the twist is that the wind changes in strength or direction every 20 seconds. If there's a west wind instead, then Gloomshroom is now giga buffed since it now shoots 16 additional projectiles towards the zombies every burst. And yes, this also means that Zombotaney Ps will be blown away during a west wind, negating all the Gatling P zombies. Yeah, so the wind also blows away Doomshroom and Doomshroom only. Guess the modder anticipated that Doomshroom spam would ruin the entire gimmick of the level. I can't believe I got trolled by the modder like that. I guess they were 2 steps ahead of us in thinking about what plant we would use to cheese the level, so fair enough, man. We're forced to use Jalapeno instead to counter the flag zombie, and I guess this is the one time Jalapeno is better than Doomshroom when they cost the same amount of sun. But not having a Doomshroom won't hurt us much since we have Doomshroom on our side. It is the only attacking plant completely unaffected by the wind, making it the perfect choice for this level since we're already using Gloomshroom. With the only threats being Gatling P and Screen Door zombies, we cruised past the first half of the level without losing any Gloomshrooms. And I was pretty surprised by this as well, but this defense was very resilient, and we continued holding up despite the zombies coming in ever-increasing numbers. That's just the pure power of Infinite Pierce Fumeshroom and Gloomshroom coming into play, and I suppose having Zombotaney Ps completely negated half the time was really helpful as well. But our downfall was imminent. After we've already lost most of our wall plants because of an earlier east wind, the 3rd Blood Moon Rising began, and now there are like 8 double-speed Screen Door zombies stacked on top of each other in every lane. Jalapeno dealt with 1 lane for us, but there's no possible way to defend this massive clump. Yeah, I tried planting a pumpkin and it literally died in 2 seconds. The horde rips right through our Gloomshrooms like butter melting in a pan. It looks like we're about to get cooked, but not just yet, because luckily, we still had 2 Gloomshrooms in lanes 2 and 5 helping out to clean up that mess. But surely, now I'm done against the next wave, right? Well, thank RNGesus because I got bailed out by a pumpkin freeze in lane 4, and at just the right moment as we needed it, the wind changed direction and blew away all the Zombotaney Ps, saving our entire defense from collapsing and saving this run. I did some crazy maneuvers with pumpkins and walnuts afterwards to stall the waves so I could rebuy some of the defense, and somehow this bare bones defense held off everything until the final wave. 1 Jalapeno to kill the flag zombie, and since we have all our lawnmowers left, that's GG's, and we beat the level on our 2nd try. Crazy stuff, man. The next level is Simon Says. It's one of the more creative levels in any PvZ mod I've ever seen. You'll see what I mean. The level itself is pretty pedestrian. It's just 2 flags and there aren't that many special zombies. But what makes this level unique is the objectives the game periodically assigns to us. Yes, we must complete these in-game side quests that we randomly get, like this one where we have to lose a lawnmower within a minute. But here's the thing, because of the slowdown before the first flag, it takes more than a minute for any zombie to reach the lawnmower in the early game in this mod. So yeah, the first objective we got was an impossible one. So what happens if we don't do the side quest? Well, you instantly lose the game. That might have been the quickest loss ever in the TD mod. There are a total of 7 different side quests that we can get, with each objective providing us a unique condition we must fulfill to survive. The second side quest is to not let any zombies other than basic zombies die, which is easy to accomplish now, but you probably already see why we're not going to make it very far in this attempt either way. And there we go, we completed the first objective of the level by doing nothing. But these quests don't stop coming, as there's only a 7-second cooldown before we get a new one, and somehow we lost instantly because we didn't satisfy the condition of whatever that was. What the heck? Now, here's the thing about this. The game does not give you objectives that you can necessarily complete. The one way you must lose a lawnmower within a minute is simply impossible if it's one of the first 2 tasks. This is quite a serious problem since it's one of the most common early game objectives, making the level extremely luck-based to beat. So initially, my way to resolve this is to turn off the early game slowdown entirely so we can lose the lawnmowers in time. But oh boy, that's not gonna help with the next task. Let me show you. Wait, what? Kill the imp in 20 seconds? Can we do this? Yeah, just do this. I think we got it, right? Wait, no, wait, what? Wait, how much health for this? What the hell? How much health? We spent 2 instant kills already. Brother, still not dead. What the hell? What the heck? What are you talking about? We need Hypno Shroom?
No!
What the heck? What are you? Of all the side quests in this level, nothing tops that. The imp side quest gives you only 20 seconds to kill an imp, which has 6,000 health, as much as a Giga Gargantuar in vanilla, requiring us to spend 4 explosives on it. Even if you try, there's no chance that you can kill it using attacking plants only because there's nothing that deals damage this quickly. In fact, this imp side quest forces us into using cob cannons and Hypno Shroom for this level. We'll need to have explosives on standby at all times to clear out any zombies out on demand, as we need to separate the imp from everything else in its lane so that we can be sure that it will be the one that eats the Hypno Shroom, which is the only practical way to complete this objective. Now, aside from side quests that require you to do something more, there's also one that makes you do less, as this one forces you to stop moving your mouse cursor for 10 seconds. That's 10 seconds of no planting, no shuffling, no cop targeting, and we have to wait it out while the zombies do their thing. Then there's a side quest that's the complete opposite of doing nothing, where you only have 5 seconds to dig up 4 plants, so that'll be the one that tests our reaction speed. There's also a quest which is the exact opposite of digging up plants, as we have to deplete our sun count to below 500 within 10 seconds, forcing us to plant more stuff onto the lawn. I did tell you this level was creative after all. The worst part of this level is that we'll keep getting new side quests. So the longer we take to beat the level, the more objectives we have to complete and do more stupid things, like sacrificing lawnmowers and digging out more of our own plants. And obviously, the more objectives we need to complete means the higher chance of messing up and losing the game on the spot, and there's no such thing as recovering from a mistake in this level. These side quests are also extremely easy to fail, since we can't just be prepared for every possible side quest whenever a new one is assigned. If you plant too many sunflowers early on, then you just straight lose when a task that forces you to get below 500 sun in 10 seconds appears. So somehow, we need to compromise and plant fewer sunflowers. And since every run is also unique and not all objectives appear equally common, every run may be more difficult or easier depending on what happens. And finally, in this run, I made it past the early game so I can show you guys what happens at the first flag. Here's a weird thing about it. There's no warning for when the flags arrive, so when that happened for the first time to me, I was completely caught off guard. I panicked and lost my items when I was still confused about what was going on. And here's another thing about most of the side quests. They're all significantly harder when there are ladder zombies in the mix, because if we suddenly get the task that we can only kill basic zombies, we'll just instantly lose the game if there's an enraged ladder zombie. Absolute cinema. Well, thankfully, they're easy to counter, so I immediately brought in Walnut to force them to use their ladder and slow them down. But somehow, this cop shot didn't hit the enraged ladder zombie in the first lane, and our next side quest was to not move our mouse cursor for 10 seconds. And at the exact same time, a ladder zombie just had to spawn in exactly the first lane, so we have to watch it run straight into our house. Absolute cinema once again. But there's still one more side quest I haven't shown, and this one is the rarest, which is let basic zombies eat 5 plants within 20 seconds. This last side quest is how the game stops us from using only instant kills, and thankfully, we had enough regular plants off cooldown to sacrifice when we got this quest. But we spent so much sun on just feeding the zombies, our defense is now in shambles, and the next task was to dig up 4 plants, which resulted in us going completely broke. So planting fewer sunflowers for the Deplete Your Sun side quest resulted in us just losing to the zombies instead. And being limited to only 500 sun makes us struggle a lot more in the early game, since we don't have the flexibility of just using cop cannons. So we can't beat the level with too little sun, and we can't beat it with too much. So how do we strike a balance? Well, we need an easier time in the early game, then we have no choice but to turn the early game slowdown back on. Now I know, I did say that having the early game slowdown meant that getting the lawnmower sacrifice task early on was an instant loss. And that is still true. We do still straight up lose if we get that specific side quest as one of our first 2 objectives. But that's only if we don't have Magnishroom in our loadout. See, there's one interaction we all forgot. We can use Magnishroom to remove the bucket from a buckethead zombie, which makes it move faster. And now, we can lose our lawnmower while still having the early game slowdown. I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier. And since we can now bring back the early game slowdown, the early stages of the level are now significantly more consistent for us, so it will be easier than ever to set up cop cannons and lay out our defenses before the first flag. But just getting a strong defense is not the end-all be-all in this level, because even if you feel safe, you can still instantly lose if a specific side quest shows up at the wrong time. Guys, yes! We might have this here. No! Task where you can't kill anything other than basic zombies came up. Are you... Bro, cringe! And you'd think having cop cannons means you can now control when to kill the zombies, but it's possible the warning message for an incoming new task doesn't show up until you've already launched your shot, and by the time you realize, it's already too late to do anything to change the outcome. So to play around that task, we need to survive any incoming zombies without killing them, which is why I thought using an ice shroom preemptively would be a good idea, but doing that instead makes us lose if we get the let basic zombies eat 5 plants task. So there's literally no win-win situation, since if you can safely not kill the zombies and survive, then you just lose to the side quest instead. Great level indeed. And if you think the answer is to instead spend all your cop shots before there's a new task, then you lose to the imp task because now you can't separate the zombies and it's lane for the hypno shroom. I swear there's nothing you can do on this level to prepare for every possible side quest. This level was so difficult. I spent over 100 attempts trying to beat it. And yes, it took forever to rewatch and edit this down over 8 hours of gameplay into a watchable segment of this video for you guys. But after so much trial and error, I still could not find the missing piece of the puzzle. What was it that I was missing? Thus far, I've tried beating the level by minimizing the chance we lose to the side quests, but after so many failed attempts, I'm throwing that strategy under the bus and pivoting to a double doom strategy instead. My new theory was that we needed to speedrun this level, as the faster we beat the waves, the fewer tasks there would be. I wasn't very successful initially, as mass pre-planting doom shrooms was extremely vulnerable to an unlucky pull ambush, but I was gonna give it another chance at least before discarding it completely. I wasn't lucky on my second try using the strategy either, with a pull ambush backup dancer destroying all our pre-planted doom shrooms again. But you know what I did get lucky on? The game wasn't sending any ladder zombies at all, which allowed me to continue surviving despite having a completely battered defense and beat all the tasks thanks to their absence. But our luck was about to run out, as the next task we got was absolutely devastating. We had to sacrifice a lawnmower, but the only 2 lanes we had a lawnmower were, yeah. The way I approached this was a complete and utter tactical failure, because I accidentally let the pole vaulter on the bottom lane jump to the back. Now I have to spend a doom shroom on preventing our brains from getting eaten, which left us wide open and exposed, as we were left with nothing but a singular cop cannon as defense. But before I even knew what I could do to save this position, a ladder zombie spawned in an empty lane and ran straight into our house. And despite our hundreds of setbacks, I was still determined to try and beat this level. And with enough determination, the pull ambush on the first flag finally didn't instantly kill all our doom shrooms, meaning it was time to execute our speedrun plan, killing every single wave as fast as possible, utilizing all of our explosives. But right here, we got the side quest to let basic zombies eat 5 plants. The huge problem with that was that they were buckethead stacked on top of basics, so there was no way for me to know whether it was the basic zombies that ate the plants we sacrificed or not. And even though I fed the zombies 5 plants already, the side quest was still active, and we only had a few seconds left. We were about to lose, but remember that Imitator only has 1 HP, and we managed to save the game by sacking our Imitator Doomshroom. If you thought that was crazy, the next task was even worse, because we got the Imp task, and the Imp spawned in the only lane that was completely clogged by gravestones, meaning we could not use Hypno Shroom. So quickly thinking, I immediately used my cop shots on the Imp to try and DPS it down with the help of Doomshroom, and with only a couple of seconds left on the clock, we somehow clutched this side quest as well. After 2 consecutive close calls, I quickly eliminated the next wave with Doomshroom, and even I can't believe this happened. But we did it. I actually somehow got through this horrific level. I managed to become the first ever victor of Simon Says without using cheats or pauses. Side quest completed indeed. And last but not least, the final level of the TD mod, My Mouse, takes place on the Great Wall. The level's special gimmick is that every 30 seconds, our mouse cursor teleports to a random position on the screen. This level is actually pay to lose, since your cursor can be teleported off the game window, so if you have multiple monitors like I do, it can take a full second to move your cursor back to the game. Picking Cob Cannon for this level might have been the worst choice of all. You try and target a cop shot, and suddenly your mouse cursor goes somewhere else, and you either miss completely or you're now delayed by 3 seconds. But here's the thing, I was originally going to explain the detailed strategy for this level, but after a couple of attempts, I found out that the game starts moving your cursor the more the later you go, moves it so much in fact, I'm not even gonna bother you with the rest of the level because it's definitely impossible. Why do you ask? Well, this is what happens to your cursor after the third flag. So, is that the end of the TD mod? Well, not just yet. As you may know, we skipped a bunch of the levels on our journey through the TD mod, so next time, I'll show you all the levels I didn't beat initially, and I'll give them a second try and you'll find out whether I succeeded or still ultimately failed, and I'll then show you how other people managed to beat the level. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.